For this After Effects tutorial, I'm going through you all how to create the particle fill effect in After Effects. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to get ourselves a new project. We are going to set it to 4K, 30 FPS about 10 seconds, and keep it on any background color that you want, and then go ahead and press. Okay. What we want to do now is we want to get ourselves the text tool, and then just type in whatever you'd like it to say. We can go to the first tool and press Ctrl, Alt, Home. And we're going to center a line, the text in the middle of the screen. We need to apply an effect called CC Composite. You want to drag this onto your text layer, and then you also want to get yourself a particle playground. And it's the second one right here. Now with the particle playground straight away, you're going to notice your text will disappear. And the reason for this is because it will now generate this burst of particles right here, starting off with the birth rate. This is going to be set to 6 because we wanted to generate a decent amount of particles. We're going to leave the longevity on 2 and open up the producer. Now this one allows you to control the actual spread of the particles. If you need it to be wider, then you can increase the X. If you need it to be taller, you can increase the Y. Now for me, I'm going to set it to 0 and 12 because this nicely fits the text box right here. Next up, we're going to adjust the physics, and starting off with the animation, we're going to change it to direction. This will make it so that it'll follow the direction of the anchor point, rather than just exploding everywhere. Next up is the velocity, and for this one, we can set it to 0.5. Now what the velocity does is it's responsible for the actual spread. If you want it to be really dramatic and explode everywhere, or if you want to have it more controlled, we can set it to 0.5. We can also change the inherent velocity, and this one is responsible for changing the pace and the speed of the actual velocity. So, if your animation moves really quick, it will create more velocity. Next up is the gravity, and this one is of course responsible for the particles falling down. We can either make gravity really dense, so it really falls down, or we can make it more lighter, and this will make it float. So for us, we just want it on a more balanced number of 0.2. and we can move on to the resistance as well. For this one, we're going to set to 230 because the resistance is the control of the spread. You can leave the direction on 0. Leave the extra on 1 and open up the actual particle itself. For the particle type, we're going to set this one to tetrahedron. It creates these looking Dorito triangle things, and that is exactly what we want. Now for the bury, we're going to set this one to 0.08. Since we want it to be born really small and then end up dying at around, let's say 0.3, we also want to change the size variation to 30. And then once you've done that, we want to source alpha inherit. We can also change the color of the particles, and then the depth color to a gray color. Now that you've got yourself the first particle layer we want left, click on here and press Ctrl or Command and D 2 times to get ourselves 2 more copies of it. And with this one, we're going to first of all rename the bottom one to back up the middle one to fill, and then we can leave the particle for the top one. We can hide the backup and the fill. And we also want to go into the backup and delete the particle effects and the composite for the particle at the top. We want to pre-com this, and we're going to work backwards with the animation. And to do this, we're going to right-click on here and go to pre-com and call this something like Rev for reverse. Move all attributes, adjust the composite, and then press. OK. What we want to do now is we want to double left. Click on here to open this up. Go into the parts call. Open up the particle, the effects particle system, and then the producer. You want to go near the end of the video somewhere around, let's say 7 seconds, and you want to set the first keyframe position to free. 8 fort, create the stopwatch, and then go all the way to the end and set this one to 52.6. And what this will do is it'll make it go from the right side of the screen over to the left side. Now since we're going to minimize this and go back onto Comp 1, once we reverse the layer, it will go in the opposite direction. So now you want to right-click on here, go up to Time, and then go to Time Reverse Layer. And as you can see, this will now play at the beginning of your project, and it'll make it build the actual text. Now the next thing to do is, of course, adjust the text layer, the fill. So if you unhide this layer, we're going to adjust the settings once again. And for this one, we're going to set it to 9 for the birth rate, set it to 4 for the longevity. we're going to open up the producer and set this one to free. And this one, 214, open up the physics. We're going to change the gravity to 0.1. We can then open up the particle. And for this one, we're just going to change the size variation to 25 and the depth size to 0.75, since we want it to stay longer. And then we want to change the opacity map to constant, which will make it so that it doesn't die out. It just starts to disappear. And we can also set this one to origin constant. And now we want to toggle the modes down here, set the track, map on the fill to the backup. And what this will do is if we hide this layer, you can see it will fill in this area right here. Now at the moment, there is no animation. So what we need to do is go back onto the rev we want left. Click on here and press U. We're going to highlight the keyframes, press Ctrl or Command, and seed go back onto the comp one. And we're going to go all the way to the start. Open up the Fill Effects Particle System Producer and left. Click on the position and press Ctrl or Command then V. You want to skip to the over keyframe and then swap these around. And as you can see, this will now fill in the text, make it visible, and then it will just disappear and crumple away into nothing. So now we can minimize this, bring back the actual particles. And what we're going to do now is simply select the Rev Press T for the opacity, set the keyframe to 100 and move this one further out. And then set this one to 0, and this will just make it fade in and appear on the screen like this. And that's pretty much it. That is how you create the particle fill effect in After Effects.